So I was going through Mass Effect's core story structure the other day and mind-blowingly discovered that the trilogy wasn't finished yet. At least, not in any way that mattered. And the exact moment the trilogy went on pause was right here. Everything from this moment onward was missing a crucial aspect of Mass Effect's story. To me, this means that the trilogy's story isn't even close to finishing yet, which explains why we keep seeing hints of the trilogy's continuation in Mass Effect 5. So what made this moment so different from every moment prior? No, it isn't because after this, Shepard was in a dream state because they were indoctrinated. That's a theory for a different day. It was actually because this scene was when Mass Effect's story structure broke from its perfect pattern. Up until this moment, every scene in the main story established two key plot types, Plot A and Plot B, which I'll fully explain shortly. Plot A kept going after the oh-so-crucial scene, but Plot B was completely cut off. But now, this same Plot B is exactly what we're once again getting hints of in Mass Effect 5. And it's this Plot B that represents the real story of Mass Effect, that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Let's dive into what these two plots are to discover why the trilogy's resolution is likely in Mass Effect 5. And this scene here is when the trilogy's Plot A first began, when Shepard sees the mysterious silhouette of a weird hand-like alien. Of course, prior to that, we were introduced to how Shepard was set to become the first human Spectre. And we also got to interact with our crewmates and meet characters like Kaidan and Joker for the first time. But this was the official moment Plot A kicked off, because it was Shepard's first interaction with the Reapers. And then Plot A continued when Shepard interacted with the Prothean beacon, absorbing the knowledge of the incoming Reaper threat, which all eventually led to the Commander becoming the first human Spectre in history in a desperate fight against Saren. Pretty standard, right? Everyone watching this who's experienced Mass Effect 1 will know what I'm talking about, because Plot A is the same for everyone. It represents the events of Mass Effect that we all experienced. No matter what each of us did, we all saw the hand-like Reaper, became the first human Spectre, and went on a journey to stop Saren from unleashing the Reapers. This plot that we all experienced was deliberately unchangeable, and this invariable Plot A actually has a specific name across all different types of stories. It's actually called A plot or a story, and represents the protagonist's external struggle or conflict. This concept of an A plot will become very important when discussing why the trilogy isn't finished yet, which I'll get to later. For now, in Mass Effect 1, Shepard's external struggle was to stop Saren by pursuing the conduit's location. And the beauty of Mass Effect 1's A plot is that it also hinted at the trilogy's external conflict too, which was first teased when Shepard spoke to Sovereign. This scene was one of the most bone-chilling moments in the trilogy because it was when the true external struggle was realized. Shepard thought that Saren was the mastermind behind unleashing the Reapers. But in reality, Saren was only a pawn, indoctrinated by the literal Reaper already in the Milky Way. They were here, they were coming, and they were planning on destroying everyone. The stakes of the trilogy's external conflict were very clearly established here, which made Shepard's journey in stopping Saren all the more critical. Which of course we all eventually did, because the A plot in Mass Effect 1 was unchangeable. But I'm sure by now you're all sensing what's missing. Where is the ever so crucial Plot B that I was talking about at the start? What represents the real story of Mass Effect that we all simply can't stop thinking about? Well, it's of course the companions of Mass Effect, through which the unforgettable Plot B stories are told. And just like A plot, this is actually called B plots in most stories, which represent the internal struggle of the protagonist. Through the protagonist's relationships and interactions, we see how they learn to overcome their internal struggle. And of course, in Mass Effect, Shepard's constant internal conflict is how they choose to act in various situations. And we see this internal struggle best when Shepard is making choices related to their various companions. One of the best B-plot decisions is seen with Garrus's arc in Mass Effect 1. When we recruit Garrus, he's a hotshot Citadel security officer who's after Saren because he's desperate to prove himself. He knows Saren is hiding something, but in the grand scheme of things, he doesn't have a sweet clue about the Reapers at all. Garrus is a classic example of representing Shepard's internal struggle. Whatever Garrus's struggles are results in Shepard making a choice for him, thus figuring out something about themselves through said choice. For example, if Shepard makes a Paragon choice with Garrus, then it results in Shepard gaining Paragon points. And when Shepard gains Paragon points, it represents their internal conflict being resolved. This is because with each decision Shepard makes, they realize more and more how they are going to act in the future. And what's extremely crucial in these B-plot choices is that Garrus is also learning about himself too. Our choices through Shepard direct Garrus to either become more Paragon or Renegade. We decide what Garrus's arc is, which eventually results in him learning how to act in the future, just like Shepard. In this way, throughout Mass Effect, every player can choose different arcs for the companions. One player can choose not to recruit Garrus at all, resulting in a vastly different experience for both Garrus and Shepard. So in Mass Effect, just as how the A-plot was unchangeable, the decisions we make in the B-plot are changeable. And very importantly, the B-plot is linked to Shepard's choices and how they impact their companions. This is the very basic core story of the Mass Effect trilogy. A-plot, which represents Shepard's external conflict against the Reapers and is generally unchangeable, and B-plot, which represents Shepard's internal struggle on how to act, seen through the companion arcs and is generally changeable. This is pretty technical, but in breaking down the trilogy in this way, it'll help explain later why the trilogy will continue in Mass Effect 5. And in order to properly do that, we have to examine how the A and B plots work together. And the best example of how the plots interconnect is right after Shepard dies. While the Normandy SR-1 burned in the space above Alkera, the Collectors accomplished Phase 1 of their plan, killing the commander, so that their plan's Phase 2 would go more smoothly. That Phase 2 being the abduction of human colonists, which is of course the A-plot of Mass Effect 2. The external conflict that human colonists are being abducted is unchangeable for all of us, making it the main plot of Mass Effect 2. Now, even though the Collector threat is a solid plotline, the beauty of Mass Effect 2 isn't in the A-plot. It's in how the A-plot connects to the B-plot of Shepard's companions. This is the actual story that sticks with us long after the credits to Mass Effect 2 roll. How and which companions we recruited, whose loyalty missions we completed, and how we ultimately managed everyone in the final mission. These are the B-plot decisions that live rent-free in our heads because we could have chosen differently. And the most important choices of the bunch were those made during our companions' loyalty missions, because those choices were the most crucial moments of Shepard's internal conflict. Did we choose Samara or Morinth? Did we listen to Tali and not destroy her father's reputation, or did we do so anyway? And what did we do with Malin's data during Morden's loyalty mission? All these crucial B-plot choices had nothing to do with the A-plot of the Collector threat. And yet, it's those choices in the B-plot that in the end mattered the most. The very few teases we've gotten in Mass Effect 5 hint at these types of choices being a key factor again, but we'll get to that discussion in a bit. For now, I want to emphasize a very important point about the relationship between A and B plots that Mass Effect 2 got so incredibly right. During the final battle, Shepard chose which companions did certain sections of the mission. This was very clearly B-plot decisions, where Shepard's internal conflict on who should do what was being tested. Obviously, this also applied to all of us, who were making those scary decisions. And once our decisions were locked in, then the magic of intertwining plots began. Depending on what Shepard chose, certain scenes took place that either resulted in a successful companion action or their death. And yet, the A-plot of completing the mission, no matter the cost, continued even with 2 or more companions dying. So the real magic of this plot setup was this. A-plot, just like in Mass Effect 1, was unchangeable. No matter who went down, the mission kept on going. But it was those very crucial B-plot choices that provided the flavor of how the external conflict played out. Yes, Shepard eventually made it to the Human Reaper, but at what cost? The B-plot and A-plot were intertwined, with a clear impact of B to A-plot in the best, most consequential way possible. And of course, the best A-plot moment was saved for last. Depending on all the choices with companions you had made prior, on Shepard's final jump, they had the opportunity to die. The external conflict of stopping the Reapers literally wouldn't continue into Mass Effect 3 if you messed up enough B-plot decisions. It's a crazy, unbelievable choice by the game that emphasizes how impactful intertwining plots can be. So if this ending was so wildly successful, then how did the Mass Effect 3 endings get it so wrong? And why does the mistake made by the Mass Effect 3 endings mean that the trilogy still isn't done yet? I think the key to discovering why can be seen in the Genophage choice and both Mordin and Rex's arcs. Even before we landed on Tuchanka, the extremely high stakes of the mission ahead was set up. The Turians would be joining the Krogan in the fight to cure the Genophage, a very ironic twist of fate that both sides didn't see coming. And to add even more irony to the mission, the very Salarian that modified the Genophage was the one willing to cure it once and for all. Mordin was ready and willing to correct his mistake and redeem himself. And the craziest part this was all B-plot. The Genophage, which we first heard about from Rex in Mass Effect 1, was finally seeing its resolution in Mass Effect 3, and it was intertwined with a whole bunch of previous B-plot choices Shepard had made prior to the mission. What made this mission even more wild, though, was how well it tested Shepard's internal struggle on how to act. Before Shepard can leave for Tuchanka, the Salarian Dalitras contacts them with a proposition. In exchange for the full support of the Salarian scientists and fleets, Shepard has to sabotage the mission and not cure the Genophage. And during the mission on Tuchanka, Shepard is continually faced with how to act. Based on this information, the commander could either reveal the Dalitras' plot to Rex or not, and they could even sabotage Mordin's redemption arc, with a choice resulting in his death. All of these incredibly impactful B-plot choices would directly affect what happens with curing the Genophage. A truly crazy B-plot that wraps up multiple arcs and has a scene that lives with us long after the credits roll. Which brings me to the exact moment in Mass Effect 3 that everything went wrong. This crucial scene that I mentioned at the beginning. After this moment where Shepard says goodbye to the Normandy crew, we lost the magic that made every other major plot point so good. And that's because after this point, the A-plot of defeating the Reapers continued, but the B-plot of Shepard's internal struggle didn't. After Shepard reached the Citadel, no prior B-plot choices made an impact on the conflict that was happening. Shepard's very long scene with the Elusive Man set up a bunch of choices that ultimately ended up with the Elusive Man dying anyway. Sure, a few conversations prior with him impacted what dialogue choices we had, but ultimately, the end result was the same, which meant that those B-plot choices had absolutely no impact, unlike the choices we had discussed earlier. Because of this, everything from the moment the Normandy crew left basically felt like a dream sequence, which understandably birthed the indoctrination theory to make it make sense. But like the game devs have said, this section of Mass Effect 3 is not a dream sequence. From everything we've discussed, it's simply the moment the soul of the game went missing, because the B-plot completely dropped off the map. Without any B-plot continuing, the A-plot had nothing to intertwine with, resulting in endgame feeling off, and ultimately a letdown. And this trend of the external conflict continuing on with a total lack of internal struggle led to the worst miss of the entire trilogy. As soon as the catalyst rocks up, it was the perfect moment for Shepard's internal struggle to return. And while the catalyst explains the many choices available to Shepard, it kind of feels like the internal struggle is being reintroduced. In order to defeat the Reapers, Shepard has to make a supposedly very difficult choice. Does Shepard destroy all synthetic life? Or maybe become the role of the new catalyst? Or does the commander create a new form of DNA. On the surface, it sounds like a really monumental choice because of all the crazy implications. But in reality, Shepard didn't even know about these choices until 5 minutes ago. Having been introduced to a sudden high-stakes decision doesn't make the internal struggle meaningful. It only makes it confusing, especially when the real high-stakes decisions like the genophage cure involved two very specific parts. The first was intertwining choices that ultimately resulted in a different outcome, and the second was how involved the companions were when Shepard made the decision. The ending choice had neither of these parts, which resulted in one of the most confusing endings of all time. The resolution of the A plots in the first two Mass Effects were deliberately unchangeable. Saren died no matter what choices we made, and Sovereign was defeated. And then in Mass Effect 2's conclusion, as long as we didn't mess it up too badly, the Normandy crew returned from the Collector base successfully, having saved the human colonists. Essentially, what this set up for players in the final installment was the expectation that the ending was going to be just as final, something that we all experienced, not a three-pronged choice. However, instead, the final choice in Mass Effect 3 was an A-plot choice on how the Reapers were defeated. We got to decide how the external conflict ended. But the problem with this is, there was no internal struggle by Shepard, because in all the choices, the same result happened. The Reapers were ultimately defeated. So essentially, the choice didn't even feel like a choice, despite there being significant differences in the final end state of the world, which resulted in Shepard's final choice feeling meaningless. And in Mass Effect 5, it's looking like it only matters that the Reapers have been defeated, not how they were defeated. Even though my theories center around these dead Reapers not meaning destroy as canon, it's very clear that the external conflict of the Reaper War is done. We're seeing signs of a rejection of the relays the Reapers built, with humanity opting to make new ones of their own. And we're even seeing signs of AIs milling about, potentially within the N7 program itself. All of these teases are signs that the Reaper's influence is over, meaning that the A-plot of the trilogy is officially done. However, based on those same teases, it's looking like the B-plot of the trilogy is stronger than ever. On N7 Day 2025, we received this tease about a Krogan civil war. Based on the architecture, this scene is taking place on Tuchanka, where we made our very crucial choice on whether we cured the genophage. So very likely, this civil war between the Krogan is a direct result of a B-plot choice, not an A-plot one. And in this Geth poster, there are Quarian and Geth bodies littered around the crater, which can be directly linked to the choice Shepard made on Rannoch with the Quarian and Geth people. Again, a B-plot choice from Mass Effect 3, not an A-plot continuation. And the most impactful tease of all, when Liara picks up an N7 insignia that is very obviously Shepard's. For various interconnected reasons that would take too long to explain here, I believe that this means that Shepard is returning in Mass Effect 5. And if that happened, then it would be the biggest trilogy continuation ever. And their return is very likely tied to the trilogy's biggest dropped plot thread in Mass Effect 3. The moment that the B-plot disappeared after Shepard was separated from the Normandy crew. After this moment, the next scene we see with all the companions is at the memorial wall. We then see more illustrations of them in the extended cuts, but very importantly, there's specific companions missing. We don't see an extended cut for Liara, Tali, Garrus, and the Vermeer survivor. The main members of the Normandy crew didn't actually get their B-plots resolved, even in the Legendary Edition's version. So based on there being no clear resolution for those companions, a clear continuation of other B-plots from the trilogy, along with Shepard's likely return, this means that the trilogy definitely isn't finished yet. And most importantly, it'll be the companions' B-plot that continues, not the A-plot of the Reaper War. The incoming Krogan Civil War is undoubtedly related to Rex, the fate of the Quarian and Geth people related to Tali, and whatever Liara is up to is definitely related to Shepard. And we know from this deep dive into Mass Effect's core story that Shepard is undoubtedly tied to their companions. Both the companions and Shepard have internal realizations together, so if the companions return, then through the trilogy's own logic, so too must Shepard. And the best part is, that's exactly what's being teased in the next Mass Effect, because there's one more chapter left to tell in the Mass Effect Trilogy story. The dropped B plot threads that might finally be resolved in Mass Effect 5. Now, even if Shepard does return, the Milky Way is going to look very different from the last time they were around, because it looks like the old relays that the trilogy featured are officially old news. Watch this video next to see how the old era of the Reapers has ended, ushering in a franchise-altering direction for Mass Effect. See you there.